Hello, you cool cats and kittens. It's Carol Baskin, and you are listening to Fascination Street.
I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Morris Miller. Morris is a San Antonio native who was going to go to medical school, but his doctor father convinced him to switch careers and go to law school. While in law school, Morris founded Curtis Hill Publishing, the very first company to publish Texas case law on CD-ROM. That company he successfully sold to Thompson Legal Publishing way later. And then after that, he started a couple of different ventures, including being a founding partner of Rackspace Managed Hosting, which eventually sold for $4.3 billion. Morris, being the anti-boredom guy he is, didn't stop there. After cashing out of Rackspace, he got involved into a few other investments, including golfballs.com, and is currently a managing partner of Tectonic Ventures, as well as the CEO at Xenex Disinfection Services. And that's what we talk about in this episode. We talk about the CD-ROM thing with Texas case law. We talk a little bit about golfballs.com, about Rackspace, and how that all happened. But the biggest thing we talk about is Xenex Disinfection Services, which has an R2-D2 looking robot called LightStrike, which disinfects surfaces in hospital rooms and other high-traffic areas in various sorts of buildings, hotels, sports venues, things of that nature, by using a super focused and super high-intensity xenon light technology. It's pretty insane. And of course, we talk a little bit about Tectonic Ventures, a venture capital group that he is the managing partner of. We're getting into the head of one of the most successful people ever on the show, and what makes this guy tick. We have a lot of fun. This one was done in person. There may be some background noise, but try and bear with me. I think I got most of it out. And this is my conversation with super crazy successful entrepreneur and the CEO of Xenex Disinfection Services, Morris Miller. Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Morris Miller. How you doing today, Morris?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I can't complain, dude. So we're going to get to know you, and we're going to veer all over the road getting there, okay? So just be patient, bear with me, but we're going to have a lot of fun. Morris Miller, I found out about you through, let's just go ahead and call him a mutual friend, previous guest of my show. If you guys could see the curiousness on this dude's face, he's like, what name is he about to say? What name am I about to say, would you guess? How would you think that I would have known you? You'll never guess it in a million years, so I'll just tell you.
George Strait.
He guessed it on the first try. Absolutely not. Ryan Kelly.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan Kelly, a previous guest and CEO of Pear Analytics. I'm not really sure how you guys know each other, nor do I really care because it doesn't really matter. But he was telling me some really cool things about you and what you do, and this was maybe 2.5 or 3 months into what we're now calling the pandemic. We're going to talk about that cool stuff, but way later. So where were you born and raised, man? Where'd you grow up?
Born and raised here in San Antonio, Texas.
Why?
My parents lived here. My dad had been in the Air Force up in Wichita Falls. He had grown up here, and he decided to move back here with my mom, who was from Cleveland, Ohio.
Where's Wichita Falls?
Wichita Falls is in North Texas. There's an Air Force base up there.
That's where my sister was born.
Oh.
I was born in San Antonio.
At the Knicks?
No, Air Force. Come on now.
So you were born at Randolph?
No, the other one.
BAMC?
No, the other one. Wilford Hall.
Oh, sure.
I was born at Wilford Hall Medical Center. And you know who else was born there? Nobody cares. Previous guest of the show, Carol Baskin from the Tiger King. She was born and raised in San Antonio.
So you've interviewed, Carol and Steve are our best friends.
Really?
Yes.
Carol Baskin?
Oh, you may be thinking about the other Carol Baskin. There's a Carol Baskin here in town who's an attorney who always is confused with the other Carol Baskin.
Oh.
Yeah, she'll say her name and people go, oh, you did Carol Baskin? Oh my God. And she's like, no, not that one.
I get that all the time with Steve Owens. 1969, he won the Heisman Trophy.
Oh, I see the resemblance.
Not me.
Oh, okay.
I think it was the next year is when O.J. Simpson won. Either the year before, year after. Again, nobody cares. So I guess that's why your parents just landed here. They ended up here.
My dad had grown up here and came back here to practice medicine. He was actually, if you know the medical center, the Oak Hills Medical Building was the big office building that just opened, and he was the very first tenant in that office building.
What kind of doctor?
Internal medicine with a subspecialty in rheumatology. So focused on people that have arthritis.
Got you. I might need a call. Oh.
Well, he's retired, but he'd be happy to help you.
Well, that's sweet.
Yes. I will say he's just as active in his retirement with medicine as he was while he practiced medicine, but it's all completely charitable.
I've noticed that about successful people. They don't stop, whatever it is. They just don't stop. They can't stop.
Yeah. There's a theory about this. Have you ever heard of the tyranny of freedom?
Hit me.
So we were involved with a company here in town, and
is this a company that we're going to talk about later, or
later,
we're not allowed to talk
later.
Okay.
So I'm just mentioning.
Okay.
But after that, I was like, oh, okay, well, we're done. We're retired. And I went and I talked to the psychologist, and I go, God, this is remarkably unsatisfying. And she goes, oh, very common. It's called the tyranny of freedom. She goes, go read about it. And basically, this is the idea that if you're a results-oriented, driven person, then the idea of not doing anything with your time, it's actually not fulfilling whatsoever. And I said, so what's the solution? And she just said, well, you got to go do it again.
Start something.
Right.
Doesn't matter what it is. And like your dad, it doesn't have to be for money.
Absolutely.
Stay busy. Do something. Have a purpose.
That's exactly right.
Rad. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a doctor.
Why? Oh, I know why.
I went through pre-med courses. And actually, when I was a junior in college, my dad called me one day. He goes, I can't believe I'm going to tell you this. I go, what's that? He says, you should not go to medical school.
You were in your third year?
Of undergrad. And I said, why? And he goes, I just served as chief of staff of the biggest hospital in town, and medicine is becoming corporatized, and you will not like it. He says, you will be in it for the best interest of the patient, and when the hospital conflicts with you, you're not going to accept it. And then he said something really prophetic. He goes, one day, I bet you'll do more to help patients as a businessman than you could ever do as a doctor.
And he was wrong. Oh, wait. I saw that number out there. I'm pretty sure that you got there already. That's a lot of patients.
He practiced medicine for 40 years.
Nice.
So we've got a way to go.
Very cool. So your dad said, don't do it. And then you were like,
So what do I do? And he mentioned there's a gentleman here in town, unbelievably great guy named Mike Birnbaum, who's a property developer. And he goes,
I see his signs all over.
Birnbaum Property Management Company. And he goes, Mike is one of the most intelligent people I know, and he has a law degree. He says, I don't really care what you do. It seems to me that a law degree is a good background. I think you should go to law school. And where some kids are very recalcitrant and they want to rebel against their parents, I always found my dad to be very intelligent and thoughtful. And when my dad suggested that, I said, okay. And literally, I graduated school early, and I started law school the very next year.
Was your dad paying for school?
He did.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to go, you know what? You're right. Maybe I don't need to be a doctor. I'll go be a lawyer if you're going to pay for it.
Well, this is funny. When I was younger, I talked to him about education because he became a physician, his brother became a physician, and his other brother became a lawyer. And he said his parents felt like school was the most important thing you could do for your children, and they paid for his school. And he made the agreement with them that he would pay for his children's school.
So he promised his parents that he would pay for his kids' school.
And I promised my parents the same thing. And that's exactly what I've done. He would always say, education, what you have between your ears is the only thing that people can't take away from you. He's like, if you want to go to medical school and then law school and then get a philosophy degree or anything else, he's like, that's great. And at the same time, no trust funds.
Oh, that's good.
So that way you graduate school and you can come home.
Yeah, I paid for school. Get a job. The rest is up to you.
Right. And they always said, if you want to come live at home, you're welcome to live at home.
Did you do it?
I did. When I started practicing law, I moved back in with them. And basically, that's how I was able to start my first company. because I wasn't spending any money on anything except pursuing my law practice. I was with a firm here in town called Matthews and Branscombe and starting a company. And they completely enabled me to do that. And I played chess with my dad at night, and my mom made great meals, and I got to spend time with him. And to this day, I mean, I still go to dinner with him every Sunday night. And
Do you take your laundry?
No. Do my own.
Did you say you have dinner with them when, did you say?
Every Sunday night.
Every Sunday night. Wow, that's amazing. I don't know if I could handle that.
I look forward to it. My dad calls me most mornings at about 5 a.m. just to check and see what's going on.
I don't know if I could handle that either.
I like it.
And by that, I mean, I don't know if I could handle having dinner with your parents and having your dad call me at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if I can handle that. So hopefully I'm not wrong, but one of the companies that you started has nothing to do with the law or medicine, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Just making sure my wires aren't crossed here. So how long were you a lawyer? I know you're still a lawyer.
Still a lawyer, about 3 years practiced law.
Why only 3 years?
Because I left to start a legal software company.
A legal software company?
Yeah, in the old days, you would look up things in books. Mm-hmm. You'd go to the descriptive word index, which is just an index of words.
It's why all lawyers on TV shows have an entire library behind them.
Right.
Judges too sometimes.
Right. So that was how you found it. When I was in law school, there was two systems, Lexis and Westlaw, and you could use them as much as you want. I got an extremely high grade in legal writing, even though I'm not a writer, because I was so good and believed in electronic legal research. So when I graduated, I'd had an idea all during law school to put the case law on CD-ROM, because this is before the internet. My dad was like, that's a great idea. You've always had good ideas. Please, please finish law school, get a job at a good law firm, and then do whatever you want. And within the first maybe 2 months of being at the law firm, I presented this to the managing partner. And he was like, wow, that's a great idea. Don't know why you're practicing law. You should go start that company. And I'm such a good salesman that I got rejected 168 times on this idea.
But who's counting?
Right. I have all the NDAs in a file in my garage to this day.
You
to
do,
remind.
really?
I do. Yeah, because it was so painful.
You're that guy. You're that author who gets 168 rejection letters, keeps them all, and then sends them all a big finger when he finally gets one.
I never did that.
No.
It was a reminder to me that you shouldn't just take no for an answer, that sometimes you have to weather through that.
Are you familiar with Mary Kay Cosmetics?
Sure.
Mary Kay Ash, founder of that company, one of the things that I'm pretty sure they still teach their consultants this is, as far as being able to handle rejection, they say turn it into a contest. When you're asking, hey, can I give you a facial? Can I show you my whatevers? See if you can get to 100 no's in a row. If you get a yes, you got to start over. And that makes it a little less daunting because you're already going in with the expectation that it's probably going to be a no. So I feel like that kind of takes a little bit of the sales pressure off too, because you kind of already have nothing to lose.
That's right. Especially when you're trying to start a company.
Yes.
Right. And I really didn't have any expectation. I made a lot of friends during that process anyway. People later on who invested in different things, who originally in that deal said, no, we're not going to do it. But they remember it. They remember missing it. And then later on, they came back around as investors.
Interesting. So I'm going to assume from the context of this conversation that was a successful company. That was a successful venture.
That was successful.
It seems like a massive undertaking to put all of case law onto CD-ROMs.
So we did all of Texas case law.
Okay.
And we spent about $865,000. We bought the books, and then we sent them and had them triple keyed in Asia with people who don't speak English but just recognize the characters. If all three matched, it went into the database. If two matched, they looked at the book. And if none of the three versions matched, they would retype. They weren't allowed to photocopy anything because that would have been a violation of copyright. And they managed to produce that database. Everybody thinks they're really smart, or some people think they're really smart. If I had been really smart, I would have said, oh, indexing the world's information is where to be, and we would have started Google, but we didn't. We started that company, and it was acquired by Thomson Reuters.
I talked to one of the founders of Google, and he actually mentions you and your company as an inspiration. So they weren't allowed to photocopy any of the case law that you sent them because it would be a copyright infringement. Would it be a copyright infringement on your product, or would it be a copyright infringement of whatever book?
It would be a copyright infringement of the book.
Okay. How did you get around the copyright?
So we didn't violate the copyright. There was a Supreme Court decision that had come down called Feist versus Rural Telephone Companies of America.
Was that a U.S. Supreme Court? Or
U.S.
Texas?
Supreme Court.
Okay.
And in this decision, the Supreme Court said a compilation of public facts is not considered to be copyrightable information. That's the basic holding in there.
That makes sense.
A law firm called Arnold, White & Durkee at the time in Austin wrote an opinion letter stating that this would be a compilation of public facts, that the case reporters had public facts. And as long as we didn't copy any of their proprietary summaries or anything, then it was completely fine.
Interesting. Seems like a massive project.
It was.
How many people did you have working on this, not typists in another country?
There were probably at one point in time, I don't know that there were thousands, but certainly there were hundreds of people working on it, keying information in, and then the software was used, and then we produced the database, and we started selling it to Texas lawyers.
How many CDs was that?
Thousands.
Wow.
And there was a judge in Houston named Michael O'Connor.
Sure, yeah, Michael O'Connor.
Who had written the O'Connor's litigation series. It's kind of every litigator in Texas had these. She liked what we did so much. She was like, I want you to electronically publish my book. Kind of very egalitarian. She was an independent author, and we were an independent legal publishing company. And one of the things that we did as we went along is we started adding more and more information to our disk at no charge. Like if attorney generals came out and we could get them, we put them on the disk for no charge. Statutes, codes, anything we could get, no charge. Anyway, that grew, and then once we had O'Connor's litigation series linked on the disk, that made it that much more irresistible. And I'm still friends with her and her son to this day.
Rad. So then you became massively successful with that company, and then you retired. No, wait. Then what? How did that company end? Did you sell it?
Yeah, it got bought by Thomson Reuters, which was a subsidiary was called Thomson Legal Publishing, was going to buy West Publishing. They bought us, and then they bought West Publishing, which is the biggest legal publishing company in the world. And then we exited.
Then you learned how to play golf.
No, I didn't know how to play golf back then.
Okay.
Then I started looking for the next deal, and I'm friends with a guy in San Antonio.
So I'm going to pause you. So you're looking for the next deal, which means you're looking for the next project to jump into, kind of like a venture capitalist, but you want to be hands-on?
It wasn't clear. Clearly, I wanted to invest the money that we had just made.
Right, and you were too young to just retire.
Right, and I thought, I love working with entrepreneurs. I like helping entrepreneurs, people like Ryan Kelly, anybody. And I was just looking at, what's going on out there and who could benefit, and was there a business that we could scale and make really big and kind of leverage off all the lessons that we had learned.
You sound like a Shark Tank guy.
Similar but different. I think they are looking for the next big idea. Uh-huh. I think that you can get involved with the next big idea and you can really help it grow, which I think of the Sharks, it seems like Cuban has done a good job and Lori does a good job of really helping them.
I talked to a guy who Cuban helped do that too. Rob Gronkowski's brother, Chris Gronkowski, he played for 3 or 4 teams, including the Dallas Cowboys. And he had a business that was doing pretty well, and then he took it to Shark Tank. Cuban bought on, and it's just exploded from there. It's called Ice Shaker?
The NFL?
Yeah, it's called the National Football League. This is the National Foosball League. It's called Ice Shaker. It's basically a cross between one of those protein powder cup things and a Yeti.
Oh.
Anyways, Cuban has been very helpful.
Well, you look very strong, so it's working.
I love this guy. I don't work out. I'm just naturally like this. All right. Okay. So you meet this guy in San Antonio?
Yes.
All right.
I think more importantly, we met the founders of Rackspace, Richard Yu, Dirk Elmendorf, and Pat Condon.
Okay. Explain what Rackspace is, because I only know what Rackspace is, honestly, because I know Ryan. I wouldn't know what Rackspace is had I not known him, and nobody else on here knows who Ryan is.
Got it. When I met the founders of Rackspace...
Was there already a Rackspace?
It was called Scimitar.
Okay.
The idea that I had come up with was I wanted to put high-speed internet into all of the office buildings around the country.
How long ago was this?
This was in 1995. So this is right at the beginning of the internet.
That is way ahead. Like in 1995, I was living in San Antonio with some friends, and you could download a picture, but it would take about 60 minutes.
Okay. So when we sold the legal publishing company, I was told that I was going to stay for a year and help with the transition to the buyer. And we were approached by a religious publishing company called Concordia Lutheran Publishing out of St. Louis. And they wanted to put all of their Bibles, like they had like 50 different versions of the Bible. They'd have the King James and the New International Version, and they'd have them in 9 different colors. It was amazing. And I went up there. Nobody had ever put this kind of stuff on the internet. I worked with a guy named Joe Howie, and I said, Joe, I bet we could do this. So we put a server about 10 blocks from here at Internet Direct. A guy named John Ingates was there. We put this entire religious catalog of stuff onto the internet. We used an Access database on the back end. This was before the time that people could give you cookies. So we had tokens that the database would give out. Anyway, it was a massive undertaking to get a server online. It was a dual processor 486 DX250 server was what it was.
Or something.
Right.
Lucky guess.
Right. John was like, hey, you can have the bandwidth for free because we're using it all to ship out internet stuff. Your stuff is all coming the other direction. It doesn't cost us anything because they had all the bandwidth going out to consumers. In my office, I put up a DSL line, which was 2 64K lines that were bonded. So I had 128 kilobits per second. And people would stop by my office and I'd say, okay, this is what the future is going to be on the internet. This is amazing. And I had just started using something in 1995 called email. Mail within the office.
Sorry, hold on. It's called email?
Email.
Okay.
Right. But nobody knew what it was. Like some people had messaging in their office over Windows for Workgroups. But other than that, the idea of me sending you an email, that was, how do you do that?
The idea of you sending me a fax with no paper?
Right. Right.
Hey, Streetwalkers. Here's a word from our sponsors.
Welcome to the Player Series. I'm Gary Player, and throughout the series, we're going to take you through incredible stories, conversations with legends and current players, perspectives on current events in and around golf, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe to the Player Series on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast.
Let's get back into it.
So that was really what got me interested. We were going to light up all of the office buildings around the country. And these young founders came over. The name of their company was Scimitar. Richard came in and he had this big book. He's got like 40 pages in his presentation. He says, okay, so I'm going to present this to you, but I need you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And I said, I really don't want to sign a non-disclosure agreement. I said, you know what? You're going to have to sell me on the idea. So just sell me on it without telling me anything proprietary. And he's like, you going to steal it? And I said, I won't steal it. And he goes, okay. And he did a great job of selling it. And basically, we had gotten quotes for $1 million per building, $500,000 per building to bring in high-speed internet. And he was like, $25,000. And I'm like, how are you going to do that? Well, we're going to use our own servers, our own firewalls. What kind of server? Well, we're going to use these servers that run an operating system called Linux. I go, I've never heard of it. And he goes, well, it's a open source operating system. It's very reliable. It's owned by the community. We'll use it. We start talking to him. And I said, well, Richard, would you want to invest in the company? Maybe take a discount on your $25,000 and get equity in the company and help us? He goes, no, thanks. And I go, what do you mean? I said, we're going to find this whole thing. He goes, I think we have a better idea. And I said, what's that? He goes, well, have you ever heard of a dedicated server? No. He says, we think that every company is going to have multiple internet servers. And I go, oh, like web servers. He goes, no. The web is one application on the internet. He goes, you've used email. That's an application on the internet. Think about video. That's going to be on the internet. These things that you can't imagine businesses are going to put out there, it's all going to be on the internet. And he goes, and every company is going to have multiple servers. I said, okay, Richard, I like this vision. This is really good. He goes, yeah, it's very similar. Bill Gates said that there's going to be a computer on every desktop. This is just like that. And I said, okay, good. Have you ever sold any? Nope, never sold a single one. I said, well, why don't you go sell one? Actually, sell 10. And if you can sell 10, you have your backing. And he goes, okay. So he goes away. About 3 weeks later, he comes back. He says, okay, we sold 8. And I said, well, the goal was to sell 10. I said, how much are you getting per server? And he says, $500 a month. And I said, okay, that's good. And how much does a server cost? He said, about $1,000. I said, okay, that's really good. I said, why not 10? And literally, Richard, you're meeting me. I'm like the farthest thing from a dude you've ever met. And he goes, look, dude, if you don't want to invest, just tell me you don't want to invest, but don't mess us around and waste our time. And I go, oh no, I'm not saying that I don't want to invest and I don't want to wait.
I said, listen, dude, we had an arrangement.
I said, I just want to understand. And he goes, we literally don't have any more cash. And I said, okay, let's work on the deal and we'll have this thing funded within 3 weeks. And that's what we did. And I told Richard on the very first day when he came in, the name of the company was Scimitar. And I said, you need to change the name. And he goes, do you even know what a scimitar is? And I go, I don't. And he goes, it's a Japanese sword. And I said, okay, I don't like the name. And he goes, why not? I said, because off the top of my head, I can think of like 9 different ways to spell it. C-I-M-I-T-A-R, C-Y-M-I-T-A-R, S-C-I-M-I-T-A-R, S-C-Y-M-I-T-A-R. I said, nobody's going to know how to find you, even if they could remember how cool a Japanese sword is. And he goes, touche, good point. So he goes up. When he comes back, he goes, oh, by the way, we listened to you. The new name of the company is Rackspace. And I go, okay, Rackspace is a good name. And his vision, his mission was to put as many servers online for companies as he possibly could. And basically they created systems and processes. He and Dirk and Pat and Edwin, they were at the office all the time. They would sleep at the office. They might go home every third day to change clothes or do whatever they needed to do. It was just a tremendous effort.
That's how you get things done.
It was amazing.
Isn't that right, Elon? So you and all of these, it sounds like 11D people, can I safely say are co-founders of Rackspace?
They are founders.
They are founders.
I'm a co-founder.
You're a co-founder.
Right. They have priority.
And the difference is they were there first and you came aboard later?
Correct.
Okay. Are you still a part of Rackspace at all right now?
No, none of us are a part of Rackspace.
Nobody? Everybody? Everybody's gone?
Yes.
Oh my God. Did Google buy it?
No, it went public and then it was bought by a private equity firm, Apollo Private Equity.
Oh, okay. Whose decision was it to buy Windsor Park Mall?
That was not my decision.
Folks listening, Windsor Park Mall is one of the biggest buildings at the time in San Antonio, square footage wise. I don't know what, 2-3 stories, massive footprint. Yeah, off the top of your head, do you know how many square feet that building is?
Million?
That's a lot. Were you around when that decision was made?
Yes.
Okay, great. What is there? What do they do there?
It was an old mall that had been abandoned. So it had a tremendous amount of square footage, a lot of infrastructure. And for a fast-growing company, they wanted as much area to grow into as they possibly could. And because it's a mall, it had a tremendous amount of parking for employees. Rackspace difference was fanatical support. And fanatical support means that there's people to help you. And if you're going to have people to help you, they better have a place to park so that they can come inside and get the work done.
Is fanatical support a technical term?
Fanatical support is a technical term in the sense that it is a promise of what that company would deliver when things went wrong. So basically acknowledging, as opposed to saying, hey, look, you're never going to have a problem if you get a server from us. It was a much more believable promise to a technical buyer because they'd say, look,
it's going to happen.
It's going to, right, you got it. It's going to mess up. Fanatical support is our promise to you of what we will do when things go wrong. It was a much better promise. It was the guy named David Bryce came up with it. He's brilliant, and that's what we strived to deliver every single day there. And that meant no automated attendance. It meant no voicemail. So you never got the dial 1 for customer service, dial 2 for sales, dial 3 to go back to the beginning of the menu. None of that. We answered the phone. Good afternoon, Rackspace Managed Hosting. How can I help you? This is Steve. Steve, can we authenticate you? Yeah, my authentication number is 0165243. We got you. Great. Let me get you to your team lead. We've already seen that you're having a problem with your server. We've already got it taken off the rack. Is that what you were calling about? And you'd be like, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's the idea.
So I wouldn't have to try to express my problem to somebody who might be in another country struggling with the language that I'm trying to explain it in?
Correct. Unless you were calling from outside the United States.
This guy. You know, a lot of stand-up comedians have a law degree.
Is that true?
That is true.
I wasn't aware
A
of that.
lot of them have a law degree.
Huh.
And they actually practice law for a little bit, and they go, yeah, this ain't for me.
That I believe.
Did I ask you already, are you still a part of Rackspace?
Nope.
You're not. Okay. Doesn't really matter why, unless it matters. Does it matter why? That project for you and your time came and went. You were successful at it. You moved on. You didn't retire again. I'm assuming you didn't have to write them a check when you left, and that's cool. So now you've already done 2 massively successful businesses. One would presume, based on the history of this conversation, that yet again, you started looking for another project to get into.
Correct.
And then what happened?
We got involved with a company called...
You said we.
So this would be Dan and myself and a few of my other friends. And also a lot of these things we've now done, I've done them with those 3 co-founders of Rackspace.
Okay.
It's like even like this coming Monday, I'm having lunch with Dirk, right? And I talk to Richard, I don't know, once a week. Pat, I probably talk to every other month. So we've all stayed friends. Ryan Kelly, the deal that you mentioned earlier, that was a deal with Pat Condon. So
Well, hold on. A deal? I don't know anything about a Ryan deal.
Ryan Kelly,
Yeah.
Pair Analytics.
Yeah, what does that have to do with you?
Oh, because we helped start that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he wanted help starting it, and so we gave him some.
I just thought that y'all knew each other because y'all were vaguely in the same business. Cool.
We also know each other because, I mean, we know each other for a variety of reasons.
Right, okay, I
And
had no
it
idea.
turns out you end up investing with a lot of your friends.
Okay. As
So-
long as they're not all the dumbos I went to school with.
So we invested in a company called golfballs.com.
Can I guess what the idea was there?
Sure.
It was just the middle finger, and you sent it to everybody who gave you those 168 denial letters, right?
No. This was a...
My idea is better than whatever you're about to say.
This was a brilliant guy in Lafayette, Louisiana named Tom Cox. He had a vision where he thought everybody's going to want customized golf balls.
He's not wrong. I have ordered some myself, and I don't play golf.
At that time, it was a small company, but he's now grown up and he's the world leader in golf customization. So we sell more golf balls online, more golf equipment than anybody in the
Again,
world.
you said we. So
Tom Cox.
So you're still a part of this? Or-
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Good job.
So we helped grow that.
My God, you are Elon.
Had a lot of fun. And then I was approached by another friend.
So golfballs.com is what you did directly after Rackspace?
It was an active investment.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So you were hands-on, but you're not carrying the football.
That is correct.
Okay.
And if you saw my emails, you'd go, wow, he traded 6 emails with Tom Cox this morning to talk about the business and what we're doing. There's another friend, Brian Kruver, and Brian had met the founders of this company, Xenex. And these are 2 Johns Hopkins PhD epidemiologists. And he was like, Morris, these people are so smart and they have a different take on what needs to happen to properly get rid of pathogens in hospitals.
Spell Xenex.
Xenex.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was like, well, I'd love to meet them. So the 2 founders, Dr. Mark Stibick and Dr. Julie Stahoviak, both came to my office here in San Antonio, and they presented the idea. And one of the questions, similar to the Rackspace guys, I always go, well, what is your mission? And without missing a beat, Julie looks at me and she's got these steely blue eyes. And she goes, Morris, we want to stop the pain and suffering, and we want to stop the needless deaths that are caused by hospital infections.
I'm going to pause you right there. I had no idea that getting an infection from a hospital was a thing. I have really bad lungs, and I kind of always have. And so I have a pulmonologist, and I have been struggling really since December of 2019. I've been struggling with, I had gotten sick and it had turned into pneumonia and I couldn't really quite shake it. And so I'd just been struggling and trying to get rid of it, and I really couldn't shake it. And it was a lot of coughing, a lot of junk in my lungs and the wheezing and the rasping. And it was probably 8 weeks ago. I went again and I'm just like, dude, I just can't. And he goes, look, we're going to go get you a CT scan. We'll see what's going on. Ended up, I had double pneumonia, right? Pneumonia in both lungs. And he was like, all of these drugs that I have given you should have knocked that out. Have you spent any time in a hospital recently? And I was like, why would you ask me that question? And that's when I found out that some of the most stubborn, pathogens and the most medicine resistant ones, you'll catch them in a hospital and then they'll kick your ass. So that's the first time, it was like 2 months ago, that I found out that you could actually get that in a hospital and then bad things. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, even by their very names, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, which everybody knows, well, MRSA.
That's my street
And its
name.
very name, methicillin resistant, or VRE, vancomycin resistant enterococci. There was all these amazing antibiotics that have been produced by brilliant people, and the bacteria go, oh, okay, that's coming after me. I know how to create a defense for that. And they become antibiotic resistant. And the founders explained this to me.
And this is Julie and
Mark.
Doctor and Doctor. Okay.
Right, Doctor. And I was like, okay, what is your take on it? They said, well, there's a lot of companies out there that have produced mercury lamp devices to try to disinfect hospitals. And I said, okay. I said, and they go, you'll see them. They're long blue tubes that glow. They look just like fluorescent lamps because basically they are with a little bit of mercury amalgam added to them and a quartz sleeve instead of a glass sleeve. So not to get overly complicated, but anyway.
I've never seen that in a hospital.
You'll see maybe you've been in a waiting room and you'll see this blue light that's kind of pointing up at the air. You'll be like, what is that thing on the wall that's glowing blue? That's usually a mercury amalgam lamp.
Thought it was like a bug zapper.
Right. They look just like that. And they're about as effective against pathogens as a bug zapper would be.
Sounds awesome.
Right. So their concept was...
Wait, is that slander?
No. Can you pull that off the shelf behind you? So this is the actual lamp that goes inside of one of our robots. This is filled with xenon gas. Now this is just a sample
like
to see.
a headlight.
Correct. And what you know about a xenon headlamp is...
Can I touch it?
Sure. It's very, very intense.
Yes. Oh.
So the intensity on this lamp is about 4,300 times.
Might be something you should have mentioned before I pointed directly into my eyeballs.
This isn't hooked up to a capacitor, so this is a fraction of how bright it would be in a robot. But
so this is a fraction of how bright it is in one of your robots?
Oh yeah, when you see our robot run, to give you the power comparison, if a typical lamp is 250 watts, like you and I know what a 250 watt bulb is, it's like that's a decent sized bulb. At the moment that this thing ignites inside or it flashes inside of one of our robots, it's about 1.3 million watts. Now it's only for a microsecond, but literally it is that powerful.
It's that flashy thing from Men in Black.
That's correct. Very similar.
Oh, okay, rad.
Right. And it turns out the pathogens don't have any defense to it. This is a broad spectrum product, high intensity, broad spectrum, high intensity. And that means we get every single germicidal wavelength of light, and it is more intense than you can possibly bear.
So hopefully I'll see it when you light up the robot, but light goes in a direction, right? So what direction does this light go in? All of them?
The light has both direct light, and then we have a reflective head on top of the robot. That's why they look like R2-D2, so that the reflected rays can also hit it. So we're getting at least 3 different angles of incidence. We're getting direct, then the bulb is moving up as it goes, so we're getting different angles of direct. That's the second one.
Okay.
And then we're getting the indirect from the reflective cap on the robot as it goes both up and down. So we're trying to hit it from multiple angles, and we run the robot on both sides of a hospital bed to try to get each side. So you're in media, you know how they light people, they'll say, okay, well, I'm gonna have one lamp here and then another lamp on the other side to avoid shadows. That's what we're trying to do in the hospital rooms.
So let's just say you wheel this robot and we're going room by room, right? Not Roomba, but room by room. You wheel this robot into a hospital room. How many times do you flashy thing it in one hospital room?
It's going to go for about 5 minutes on the left side of the bed and then 5 minutes on the right side of the bed.
And so that's 10 minutes of this insane bright light?
Correct.
Are people not allowed in that room?
They are not allowed in the room. It has sensors on it, so if somebody walks in the room, it instantly stops. And then when they leave the room, you would restart it and it'll finish the cycle.
Oh, okay. What is the name of this robot?
It's called a Xenex LightStrike Robot.
How many rooms can LightStrike do in, let's just say, a 24-hour period?
So top customers will do 65 rooms per day with a robot. Really good customers may do 20 rooms a day with a robot. Many normal customers might do anywhere between 12 and 20.
Okay, now, I'm assuming that the nature of technology, this is an ever-changing and developing robot system thing you got, right? How many generations are you at now?
It's in the name of the robot. We've been in the business for 12 years, and we're on LightStrike 6. It's called our LS6 robot.
Okay.
And basically, we've averaged about every year and a half coming out with a new robot, and we realized even though we're technologists and we like that, customers really like about a 3 or a 4 year run. So we're slowing down the release cycle a little bit So this, like LS6, had a lot more features than the previous versions did, and we're working on the next iterations that'll come out at some point in the future.
That reminds me of, let's just say, cell phones, right? The cell phone manufacturers come out with a new phone about every 12 or 18 months, which they're happy to sell, and a lot of people are happy to get them, but some people, like myself, mainly because I'm cheap and partially because I don't like waste, I want to use my phone for as many years as possible. So whereas Samsung wants me to buy a new phone every 9 months, I prefer to buy one about every 3 or 4 years. Am I at least close with your robot? I mean, are they wanting it to last longer because of the expense, or are they wanting it to last longer because they just don't want to have to mess with getting a new robot? Because when you get a new phone, it is such a pain in the ass to learn how to do stuff on your phone again. Are they technically averse or financially averse?
A little bit different than both of those. We don't try to say, well, you need to trade in your old one to get the new one.
Right.
We just add on the new one. We're like, okay, you actually need 16 robots for your hospital, your 800-bed hospital. So let's go ahead. You've gotten 5 so far. Let's give you 2, and we'll give you the new models. And they have this additional functionality.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
If you'd like to help find answers for the families of unsolved crime victims from all over, or perhaps identify a Jane or John Doe, please visit DNAsolves.com, where you can submit your DNA from a consumer testing company like Ancestry or 23andMe to their database. DNAsolves.com.
Let's get back into it.
When you look at how we decided when it was worthwhile to bring out a new robot, usually there was a mega function change. So it might have been like how Apple went from having just a MP3 player to an MP3 player with a telephone, and then an MP3 player with a telephone and the internet. And then the next thing was the camera. My camera on a iPhone 10 versus 12, maybe I don't need that. But the idea of having a camera versus not having a camera, that was a pretty big leap.
Agreed.
So hopefully the upgrades are worth it. And it's really
I would imagine that by the time that you release them, you already know that they're worth it.
We think so, for sure.
I would also like to point out that at the very beginning of this, I told you I was not an Apple guy, so I don't know why you just went down this Apple road. Good Lord.
This is a listening problem.
Just kidding. Okay, so you guys started this company in 2010. 10. Wow. And how long did it take you before you had a robot?
We had prototype robots when we started.
Okay.
And Mark and Julie tested those at MD Anderson, and they were able to prove, MD Anderson was able to prove that it was 22 times better
than
manual housekeeping.
22 times better than having somebody come in and physically clean with chemicals and
That is correct.
Stuff.
22 times. That's when we got excited about it the very first time. And they do it, they take Petri dishes and they literally roll them on the surface like a bed rail. And then they put it in an incubator and they'll do a statistically appropriate sample. And then they do housekeeping and then they roll Petri dishes and do another sample and they put those in the incubator. And then they run the LightStrike robot.
Wait.
And then they sample.
So they run this robot after housekeeping?
Yes, they run it after housekeeping, and there was 22 times fewer pathogens than after housekeeping. And then they did a whole series of rooms where there was no housekeeping, and it was still a 22 times fewer pathogens.
Interesting.
No statistically significant difference. So that's when we got excited, like, okay, this is a better way. And the goal of this is to get the rooms below the level of infectivity. You don't need to sterilize them. That's not necessary to make them where somebody's not going to get sick.
Interesting. Okay, sort of like how, I guess realistically it's not feasible to make a person have 0 COVID pathogens, but the goal is to get them down to a small amount as possible so as to not spread them and not get you sick, right? Because you're always going to have it in your blood if you have it, or maybe even if you don't, but there's always going to be some in there, but you want to keep that number down to a manageable, non-infectionable number, right? Ish?
Right.
Okay, so when I first heard about this was right at the height of COVID. Well, maybe even a little before the height of COVID, when everybody really didn't know what was going on. Everybody was freaked the hell out. We were supposed to quarantine for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And Ryan was telling me about this cool product from Xenex. How did, and I don't know if it has, how has COVID changed anything about your business?
So during COVID, the business had already become profitable. And during COVID, we were in the position to help a lot of hospitals around the world.
And didn't you get like the first FDA approval for something?
We don't have an FDA approval. We were the first company in the world to announce that we could deactivate the SARS-CoV-2 pathogen that causes COVID.
And did you have to change anything about your robot to do that?
We did not.
So the antidote already existed.
Well, that was to kill SARS-CoV-2 in the environment so that it wouldn't be spread on surfaces and other places. That's different than a vaccine that's inside of people. Right. And you don't use our robot on people.
What if you don't like the people?
I still would not use our
Previously
robot.
mentioned, I talked about the flashy thing from Men in Black.
Yeah.
I have met one of those people who lives here in San Antonio.
Sure. Yeah.
I would love to use that machine on him. Oh, he's probably a friend of yours, right? Oh, he didn't say no. That means he is. All right. Well, he wasn't nice to me. Anyway, so what are your plans with this company and these robots? Are you going to install them into X-Wing fighters and have them just go all over the globe shooting their lights?
So one of the big effects that COVID had is it increased the world's awareness of pathogens and the fact that you need to kill them so that they don't infect people. So we've seen adoption in schools, school systems. We've seen it in convention centers. We've seen it in a lot of jails, nursing homes, of course, hospitals, and then hotels. Sports teams are using them, Carolina Panthers, San Antonio Spurs. Any place that people are congregating, they should be disinfecting.
Are these sports teams using them where the fans are sitting or where the players are hanging out?
They're using them for the coaches, they're using them for the players, they're using them for the patrons, basically for all the business operations and the people that are going to the games as much as they can.
So your robot's running up and down the AT&T Center, blasting its photon torpedoes?
It's doing it. It's hard to do it between the seats just because of the steps that are going down.
Sure, because it's light and shadows.
Right, but other places that are flat, bathrooms,
high traffic
areas.
Wow, that's kind of neat. How many of these robots do you have working? And I know, much like Elon and his Teslas, are they shooting information back to the company so you know what's going on?
We do. Every time the robot is run, it tells us who ran it, where it was run, how long it was run, how many times it was run. So if you look, there's a screen.
I'm going to guess it's somewhere around 32 million times run.
That's
and
correct.
Something like 5,000.
500.
500 what?
1,000.
What?
I don't know what you were going to say.
I was just going to say 5,000 robots.
Oh,
How many?
I see.
How many robots you got?
Thousands.
Thousands, plural.
Yeah.
So you have thousands of these machines that are currently running and sending, let's just call it real-time data. And you keep sort of a tally board in one of the offices here that shows not only how many times the lightning strike has shot its photon torpedoes.
That's good. That's what they are.
And also how many lives have been saved. How do you get that number? The lives saved?
Just in America, not including the rest of the world, about 2 million people get infections in hospitals a year.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And about 100,000 die. And it's a $40 billion problem.
From those crazy resistant pathogens.
If the healthcare industry was in airlines, this would be the equivalent of a 747 going down every other day, fully loaded with passengers.
But what about the luggage in the hospitals? No. So, okay, follow me down this path. Let's just say I get sick from a hospital from one of these illustrious pathogens and I die. My wife is probably going to sue that hospital.
Probably not.
Because she can't?
Because of tort reform in Texas doesn't give you enough damages to make it worthwhile to sue the hospital.
That answers my question. Because my question was going to be, with that many, wouldn't it behoove malpractice insurances or whatever, wouldn't it behoove the insurance companies to just buy these machines from you? No, because the legal system says, don't worry about it. We good. Cool. Is that just Texas?
There's other similar states, but there's other states like Florida where it's open territory.
Gotcha. Can you tell me where these machines are made?
Here in San Antonio, right here in our factory.
Am I in the factory right now?
Well, you're in my office, but the factory is on the other side, same building.
No kidding.
Yep.
You messing with me?
No.
You're building these robots in San Antonio?
We do.
Well, look at this guy creating jobs. Nice. Wow. Can I have one?
Sure.
No. I'm sure we're not going to talk about price, and I'm cool with that. Man, I really want to know how much that costs, though. You don't have to tell me.
They're just over $100,000.
Oh, okay, cool.
When you boil that down, it costs about $3 to $4 a room to disinfect the room properly, to get rid of the pathogens, which is what we're trying to do.
Sure.
So in hospitals that buy them, you look at it and you go, okay, well, if you can do 25 rooms a day and it's about $4, that means it costs you about $100 a day. And that's a really good estimate. So there's no economics that prevents a hospital from getting this. And in certain instances, we've even gone into hospitals that couldn't afford the machines. And we'll say to them, look, let's evaluate the efficacy. And as long as they work for you and they help you decrease your costs of treating patients, because you don't have patients coming back in and having complications, we'll bill you according to the savings. And we've done that with hospitals, and they've been extremely happy and extremely successful.
Is there a world where your robot puts people out of their job?
No, not really. At first, we thought housekeepers might be eliminated because of it. But it turns out you just repurpose and you say, okay, one housekeeper.
There's plenty of stuff to do.
Well, there is, and there wasn't enough time to do it properly, which is why they had the problem. So now they say, okay, you're going to go in and you're going to clean the room. You're going to come in and you're going to use the robot to kill the pathogens. And it's that 1-2 punch that really works. So you have existing methodologies for cleaning that they're better than doing nothing, but they haven't been as successful as the combination of existing methods plus a LightStrike robot.
All right, hear me out. LightStrikeGolfballs.com is a subscription service. Yeah, look, he's writing this down. Is a subscription service where I can have your robot, your lightning strike, show up at the hotel I'm about to stay at and lightning strike it because I saw that thing on TV about how well they cleaned my room before I got there. Love it.
So if you go stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel or the Waldorf Astoria in Los Angeles or the Westin in Houston, your room will be disinfected with a LightStrike robot.
What if I go stay at the Buckingham Palace if you're going to be like that about it? Really? So they're using your machine?
They are.
Nice. And I'm assuming they're super happy about it.
They are.
Rad. What is your plans for the future of this company? And also, are you just going to bail like you do on all these other companies?
So first of all, I've been involved with golfballs.com for over 14 years. So that's not a bailing. And even Rackspace, almost 16 years or 17 years from the time that it was started till it...
I was totally kidding.
Yeah. I'm not defensive.
Well, in that case, I'm not offensive.
The goal here is to get the robots in all of the hospitals, in all of the nursing homes, the long-term acute care facilities, into schools. And like you just said, you really shouldn't have to go into a hotel and worry about what's lurking in the hotel room from a previous guest. We know that people carry pathogens. We know that they leave them in the environment. It's really easy to get rid of them with a LightStrike robot. And we're trying to figure out, how do we make that ubiquitous? How do we democratize disinfection for everybody? That's really what we want to see happen.
Interesting. Much of technology, as time goes on, gets a little less expensive. Is this something that might happen in this particular version of technology?
Yes and no. For the hospital versions of the machines, it's not as likely, just because there are things that hospitals need to track, but there can be less feature-rich versions of the robot for other markets.
That makes sense.
Right.
Like a jitterbug version.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. The hospitals, they want to know who ran the machine. They need accountability.
Sure.
They need something that we call certainty of process. They need to know it was done, when it was done, who did it, where did they do it. Certainty of process is what the hospitals are about. Other places, they may consider it more elective, like they're going beyond, and they don't need us full featured. But you have to have complete market awareness in order to produce a lower cost version and see massive adoption.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I can't believe they make them here.
Here in San Antonio.
That's super awesome.
It is.
One of the things that I love about businesses and business owners and super successful people like yourself is not just that you created this really cool thing and you're helping get it out there, or you co-founded, whatever.
Mark and Julie created it.
Yes. But you help Mark and Julie bring this to fruition and get it out there. I really think that's cool. But probably my favorite part is that you're creating jobs, and from that, a tax base. All those people are paying taxes. I'm sure you're paying taxes. So I just think that whole cycle of keeping everything going, of, the hamster wheel has got to keep running, and that means all of us have to do something. And I think it's really cool that you're creating all these jobs. How many jobs do you think you've created in all of your businesses?
I don't know. I have a venture capital fund called Tectonic Ventures, partners Matt Rhodescroft, and we've seeded...
Oh, Tectonic. Okay.
Tectonic Ventures, and we've seeded probably 25 companies there. So I think Rackspace created 7,000 jobs. Between all of the other companies, probably double, triple that.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.
I hope that's something you think about regularly.
I think about the employees all the time.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility. Knowing that all of these people are counting on you to not screw up here.
They're counting on themselves.
Well, I don't know. Here, you might have screwed up already and got them all fired. So, as we're winding down, tell people where they can find more about your company and what they do and or you.
So if they have entrepreneurial ideas, if they go to tectonicventures.com or tectonicvc.com, they can learn about Juan and Matt and I. To learn about Xenex, go to www.xenex.com, and that will tell you everything you could possibly want to know about our robots and disinfection. And then if you want to see them in action, if you go to the UHS hospital here or the Audie Murphy VA hospital, to the Brooks Army Medical Center, all of them are using the robots. These are in about 130 VA hospitals and Department of Defense facilities. So everybody's frequently down on the government. They've actually done a tremendous job of adopting the technology after they figured out that it really worked.
For COVID? Or just in general?
No. They adopted massively before COVID.
When?
Over the last 8-9 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
It just dawned on me right now that it's Xenex because you're using a Xena. I'm an idiot.
That's it. You got it.
Hey, he just said I was an idiot. He agreed with me. How dare you? I know that we can't actually watch this robot do that thing or we'll die, but...
You can watch it through a window.
Oh, can you really?
Sure.
With glasses on?
You don't need glasses. The glass will block it.
Oh, snap. So is there can somebody watch this thing happen on a video somewhere?
Sure. If you go to YouTube and you type in Xenex LightStrike Robots.
With a Z?
With an X. There are literally thousands of videos, news interviews that have been done about the robot and how it's working. You know, the hospitals get it, or like the Oklahoma City Convention Center gets it, and they want people to know, hey, this is a place that is properly disinfected for you to go in and spend time in.
Nice. Is there a social media presence for either Xenex or you?
Sure. On Twitter.
Just search for it, guys. You know how to spell it. He spelled it 4 times.
Xenex. Xenex.
Yeah. On Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
It's one of the reasons why we named the robots LightStrike, because people would sometimes forget that Xenex was with an X, whereas LightStrike, you're not going to forget LightStrike with an L.
So you could probably search LightStrike in all these places and find some cool stuff out too, right?
I would think so.
Rock on. Well, dude, thank you. Dude, you like that? I do, did you?
I'll introduce you to Richard. Y'all can be dude brothers.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Morris, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day for hanging out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. This was super, super cool. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Nice to meet you.
And you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks. You too.
Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2001 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.